Hello and welcome. Consumers are going digital. Everyone is going digital, but companies are not always able to keep pace. Why is that? Let's find out from Wang of Constellation Research. Ray, you've been looking at companies who've been trying to effect digital transformation, right? And they seem to mess it up all the time. Whereas the consumer seems to be saying one thing, their consumer or customer, and they seem to be doing another thing. Why is that happening?
You know, it's great for the consumer, right? It's easy. They jump in, they hop in. I mean, the technology is in front of them. The problem is enterprises are slow to change. They're very hard. They have boards, right? And their boards aren't sure what to do. And that's driving a lot of change. Some people jump in and say, look, we're gonna hire 2 people in an office in Silicon Valley, in a Regis office, check, we now have digital transformation. They're gonna figure out everything and bring it back to the company. The issue is culture. It is not a lack of know-how. It is not, something within the business model. The issue is culture. We know how to build the business model. We know what technologies need to be there, but there has to be a burning platform to say, if we don't change, we will be out of business. We use a stat, 52% of the Fortune 500 merged, acquired, gone bankrupt. It's a very important stat. We want to talk about the age of a customer, age of a company, and really help people understand what's happening. So you worked 20 years in the same company. You finally make VP, you finally make CXO, you become the CEO, and you have 3 years to retirement. And I tell you, it's time for digital transformation. What are you gonna do? I mean, are you gonna step up to the challenge? Are you gonna make the change? You're not sure. You don't know if your board will support you. You don't know if the stockholders will slice you for trying to make a change. But the problem is you also know, if you don't make that change, what happens in 3 years?
So give us an illustration of what that change is needed and what a typical company should be doing in order to basically retain their customer or not lose their business completely.
Well, if you're in one industry with one business model, you're going to fail. Most companies today are trying to figure out what are the multiple business models and business streams that are out there. So let's take a company doing engineering construction. They design the building, they build it, and then they're done. What about operating the building, right? In a model where you say, hey, we'll provide you free housing, or we'll provide you a housing guarantee if you pay us, I don't know, a certain amount every year, right? And over time, as you grow your family or you drop your family, we'll put you in another house. Well, that's a very interesting model. So we operate. We can maintain. We'll build the facility, and we'll go out and monitor all this. We'll take care of the internet, the water, the power, any kind of issues. We will completely build a smart city, a smart building, and take care of that. And then there's transfer. We're done with this project. We're going to give it to someone else who's going to do a better job. Right? There's 5 business models there, yet you're only doing 2 out of the 5. Right? That's a great example.
But it also sort of goes against the concept of core competency, doesn't it?
It does. It does. We often go between centralization versus decentralization versus different styles, right? There's some companies that say, look, focus on the 3 things. If you're not number 1 or number 2 in each of these industries, you should not do it at all. So extreme focus. And other people say, go, let's think out of the box. Let's be opportunistic. Let's try it in a different approach. And what that is really touching on is a need for what we call dynamic leadership. This dynamic leadership is how organizations adapt in a world of digital transformation. And it's important not only at the boardroom issue, but it's also important at the CXO level.
Okay. Who are the companies in your mind as examples who should be undertaking much more rigorous journeys towards digital transformation but are not?
I think in the automobile sector, you can look around and see a lot of it. The US autos are a great example. There is a huge opportunity. Other than Ford, I would say Ford is thinking a little bit more proactively, but you're seeing the shift, right? Am I selling you a car or am I selling you a ride? Right? And I'm going to guarantee you transportation. Maybe that's what I'm actually doing. I'm guaranteeing you a mode of transportation. Maybe you buy miles from me. Right? Now, when we think about it in that way, that's very interesting. But we're distracted by autonomous vehicles and in-cars playing systems. Honestly, all that stuff is going to happen here. It's going to happen on a device. And the device is actually going to be with us, and that's going to change that experience. The car company should be focusing on a different part of the business model. But the stockholders and the shareholders, everyone's like, oh, this is great, this is exciting. The reality is they're going to provide miles as a service. Or kilometers of the service.
So to bring about the digital part of the transformation requires a certain skill set or a different set of skills from perhaps obviously what companies have today. So how do they do that? How do they bring all of this in and keep moving at the same time?
So one of the ways people started is by hiring a chief digital officer, but that is not the end of the solution. We actually think chief digital officers will be gone by 2025. Now why do I say a statement like that? Because we're looking for digital artisans. And these digital artisans bring right brain, left brain skills together. So if you have an organization with lots of scientists, technology, engineering, math people, I need to balance it out with storytellers. People understand ethnography, anthropology. People understand the user experience and design. And when you put them together, I now have the ability to create a diversity. And what I'm looking for diversity is not by gender or by religion or by race. What I'm looking for is diversity of thought. You take an author, an artist, and an architect and put them in the room to solve a problem, they look at it very differently. That perspective, that intersection of disciplines is where we spark innovation. And as you heard in many of the conversations, right, part of digital transformation requires a methodology called design thinking. And design thinking, the way Constellation Research defines it, is really about unlocking solutions to questions that you never would have asked. And when you can do that, what happens? Right? Innovation sparks. You think about different business models. And so that's what's happening. A company that's in healthcare is studying what's happening in retail. A company in retail is trying to understand what happens in the entertainment business. And that is what's happening in this place. And we are moving rapidly from platforms to marketplaces.
Right. So how do you start to expand those boundaries? I mean, a classic company sitting, looking at its numbers, sales numbers, profit numbers, distribution, the usual stuff that, keeps everything humming on a daily basis. How do you suddenly get up and say, okay, I've got to think now different, I've got to think completely wild and open, I've got to bring in an anthropologist into my boardroom. How does that process start?
This is at the boardroom level. Now the problem is a lot of organizations, a lot of legacy analyst firms have been talking about bimodal IT. That is the wrong way to do it. It's the stupidest thing you can do. You have to think about multimodal models. And you said it exactly. There is a sustaining operations team. This team is so fine-tuned. They make sure the trains run on time. They make things are precise. You cannot touch that team. That is holy. That is keeping the mission. However, I need a team that focuses on incremental innovation. So within the rules of what that sustaining operations team is doing, these guys are going to go out and make things faster, better, and cheaper. And they can figure out and they can optimize. Now, if they bring an idea back to the team, they'll take it because they know it's within the same parameters. So that gets you maybe 5 to 10% gain. That's not transformational, but you need that in order to survive. Then we put in a team that does transformational innovation, that's thinking about digital transformation. They think outside of the box. They don't follow the rules. What happens? They suddenly have an idea, they prove the concept, they get it in the marketplace. These people here doing sustaining operations are like, you're crazy, I'm not gonna do that. That requires governance. The board says, hey, look, we'll protect you. You will have your job for 2 to 3 years. We want you to implement this. We'll give you some incentives in your compensation. We'll make sure you don't get penalized for experimenting. And then we also realize that there needs to be culture because the transformational teams think, oh yeah, we're better than everybody else. The operations teams, no, we pay the bills. So how do we share the learning so people start to become attuned to what's happening? Because the problem we have with digital transformation is not coming up with the great ideas. It's going from a concept to commercializing it.
Right. So what are the 3 trends that you see, and I know you've been writing about this as well, but the 3 sort of key trends that are going to define the next 1 year in this whole endeavor?
Look, we started by saying, look, people are going to hire chief digital officers, create digital initiatives. To wrap that up, look, digital CXOs are required. By 2025, there will be no chief digital officers. But we have digitally enabled CXOs. I need the CFO to think about, hey, what does a brand new business model look like? What will that revenue stream look like? How will I report that to the street? I need an HR person that's hiring for digital artisans. I need CIOs that can understand how to build platforms and actually participate in marketplaces and use data and insights to actually create new value. I need marketing people that can think about what is possible, what product, what services, what branding, what messages to communicate to deliver and go direct to consumers in a way that we've never done before. Right? And so you notice that these digitally enabled CXOs is the first step. Now the second piece to get there in the next 12 to 18 months is really going to be around a self-examination around business models. Do we have the right business model? Now everyone's like, oh, it's digital, I'm gonna do IoT, I'm gonna do a big data project, right? But no, it's form follows function. Let's get the business model right, understand why you exist, get the business model right, then build products and services to the business model, and then we can figure out how to operationalize it.
And technology is one element of it. You're saying it's like the engineering
element.
Example that you gave.
I'm not worried about the technology. You and I know it. We're at an age where the technology can do almost everything we want it to do. We just don't have the time to prioritize these features and functions to get there. Right? So it's a matter of getting the business model right, and then we can align the organization. And then the last thing that's really critical here is to understand this is not a project. We're not going to, we'll fund digital transformation this year and skip it next year. This is a way of life. This is a complete change in terms of the culture, in terms of how we get there. And that's really the shift.
Wang, thank you so much for speaking with us. A pleasure as always.
No, thanks for having me.
Thank you.